We'll move on and talk about Newcastle United because they actually signed Nottingham Forest keeper Adesas Vlachodimos for £20 million. What do you make of that price tag, Keith? And do you agree that questions are being asked about the valuation?
Yeah, I think of all the deals I've seen recently that have been called like swap deals between clubs, this is the one that sticks out to me of having perhaps a higher valuation than would seem normal. It seems to be double, if not, I looked at his valuation and I thought somewhere between 7 and 10 maximum. 20 was a bit of a stretch. And Elliot Anderson going the other way also was a bit of a high number. So if there's going to be questions asked, I think it could be around these transactions. But hopefully the club have got enough backup data now to show that there are similar deals, comparable deals, just like buying a house. If you can show comparables, then of course that's going to be in your favour. But certainly it's one that stuck out to me. All the rest I can understand and sort of make sense of and didn't think there'd be a big challenge. But this one, I think, may have a few questions to answer, but they could well be answered.
So does that mean then, Keith, there could be effectively, let's say, an investigation, but some question marks looking into the transaction and the sale? And actually, the argument from Newcastle's point of view is they wanted to play X valuation for the player, and so therefore they paid what they felt was right.
Well, the investigation will take a view of, it's almost like a bit like associated party transactions. They're going to say, well, what is the market value? And they're going to, they'll have their own data to say, no, somebody having this many appearances, reaching this level, and this sort of rating in games is only worth this much. Anyway, there may well be extraneous factors we're not aware about, but I do think they're pushing the valuation boundary slightly.
Do you think that going forwards, we're likely to see this more and more in terms of potential FFP signings between clubs, or actually do you think it could be stamped out over the next few years?
I think it's going to be frowned upon, but it can never be stopped. I think if they can just maintain that there are sensible valuations, then I think everybody will be okay with it, because it is quite fair to allow clubs to trade players. There's no reason why they shouldn't. We all know there may well be a hint of PSR, if you like, manoeuvring around it, but still, if you've got assets, why can't you trade assets? I mean, it's just like normal business. So I don't think there's anything too wrong with it. It's when it starts becoming ridiculous in terms of trying to sell a player for 50 million when he's really only played once for the team. That's the problems that you're going to have. And I think the Premier League have sent out the message already. They're pretty sternly that, don't start pushing the envelope. We'll turn a blind eye. But if you start, taking the mickey, then I'm afraid we're going to come down on you. And I think that's where it's going to end up.
Eddie Howe, Keith, has said about the fact that it's been a difficult market with sky-high prices. So they're looking at potential further signings in the window, but they might not bring anyone else in. What do you make of that? And actually, is that a fair comment, given the fact they equally just signed Vlachodimos for £20 million?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's been a difficult market with sky-high prices. Actually, I don't see that. I see a lot of sky-high requests, which happens every season. Of course, sellers are going to ask for the top dollar. But I don't see it being a particularly hard market. Look, it may be difficult for Newcastle. It's been difficult for a few clubs with PSR issues around it. And it just meant there's been a lot more thought and a lot smarter use of your black book and your contacts to be able to make things happen. Those sporting directors are really working for their money right now. And if they're worth their salt, they're really, they're going to prove themselves to be very, very valuable. And so it's been, to me, a season in evolution of the role of the sporting director, where they're really coming home to roost rather than just working on strategy and formations and the right player for each place. They've got to get really into the detail of the financial side of each transaction. And they've got to know, working hand in hand with their chief financial officers, exactly where that piece of the puzzle will fit financially. And so a new dimension to the sporting director really, I think, has been created this year. And that's the biggest overall view that I can see coming out of the whole thing.
And looking sort of away from Newcastle, Keith, we know that PIF have bought a stake in Durham-based 100 Cricket Club. What do you make of that decision? And actually, does that just prove their further commitment into the northeast area?
Well, I don't think that's confirmed. I think, again, it was speculation at the weekend that I saw in the media about potentially the PIF coming into one of the 100 cricket teams. I know quite a lot about the cricket situation in Saudi, and I was quite surprised at seeing that. Also, people may remember there was a lot of talk about the PIF coming into Yorkshire just a few months ago as well, and that never materialised. I don't think the PIF is ready to make that push into cricket yet. I think they want to try and formalise a much bigger cricket strategy rather than doing one-off investments. And so personally, I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if this was just a story again floated around the Durham franchise to get more interest from potential buyers. But I don't see it happening from the PIF into that particular situation. It would make sense if they're in the northeast. It seems to be an area that they've identified as one of the ones that they can also help with industrial strategy, which is what, of course, the whole northeast has been hoping for, is to see the spin-off in many ways, like Manchester achieved from Abu Dhabi, a huge development around the areas around the Etihad. So I think Newcastle and the whole region are hoping for a similar situation, but I think it's not there yet. And so I wouldn't be getting too excited about the Durham 100 franchise yet.
Mm-hmm.